19. This is not the first time we're having them read this riot act out to operators. So what's new this time?
I think what's new this time is that in 2019 we'll see a couple of OMLs come up for renewal. Government has actively said that one of the conditions for renewing, the OMLs that are currently being renewed is that you must show a commitment as to how you want to utilize or commercialize associated gas. So that means that your gas utilization scheme or gas utilization program would form a big part or a big condition for renewal. So I think, that's what has changed. But in terms of also, we should look at things from perspective. So what happened is that in Q4 last year, government set out to with the gas flare commercialization program. But unfortunately, there was an apparent insufficient regulation to birth the program. And recently, in July of this year, we had a situation where the gas flare regulations came out, and essentially to set a tone for the gas flare commercialization scheme. The good thing about the regulation essentially is to capture associated gas, which has hitherto been flared, and essentially, to reduce the impact of gas flare on the environment, and also see a situation where gas becomes a significant revenue earner.
Now, in terms of trying to regulate gas flaring, we can indeed say from antecedents that we have moved from point A to point B, given that first, in terms of consequences, we moved from 10 naira, paying 10 naira as for 1,000 standard cubic of gas flared by oil companies to now $2 per 1,000 standard cubic feet flared by these companies, now to eventually talks about revoking of licenses. But then, given the antecedents, like you mentioned, should we worry about implementation? Is this actually going to be a bite or just one in a series of barks that we have seen?
Honestly, I think the current government really intends to commercialize gas. And if you take time to look at what regulation says, the flare gas regulation of 2018, essentially, government is saying that we're going to take the flare gas from a producer that continues to flare and give what we call a permit holder under the regulation the flare gas to utilize. So in the real sense, implementation obviously, like any government policy, is a concern, but I think the regulation actually sets a good tone as to how government would effectively and efficiently find a lasting solution to the gas flare issue. So currently, or as the coming months go by, if government, barring any setback about the elections, if government continues this way, we may see a bid for the flare gas sites in the near future. So, and if that is done, then I think we'll be making significant progress with regards to commercialization of gas.
Talking about investments in the gas sector, we're looking at investment worth about $20 to $30 billion, according to the federal government. Now, in terms of trying to harness the potentialities that come from the country's gas sector, the power sector, the oil and gas sector, what's the talk around the Payment Assurance Guarantee Program going on between the federal government and the Nigerian Gas Association about?
Okay, in order to also understand this issue, it may be necessary to talk about these issues or how this issue arose in phases. And I think the first we should look at is what happened before 2017 when the PAG, which we call the Payment Assurance Guarantee, was given. We had significant liquidity problems within the power value chain, which continues to persist. But government introduced the 701 billion credit line to the bulk trader, which we colloquially call MBET, the Nigerian bulk electricity trader. What the fund essentially was set up to do is to give assurances, payment assurances to the generating company. So essentially it was to take care of the production side of the power value chain, whereby the gas company, the generating companies that use gas as feedstock could easily make payments to the gas producers. And essentially, the CBN provided funds to MBET in order for MBET to keep up with its PPA obligations And I mean, it was introduced effectively in March of last year, but it had a period of between January 2017 to December of this year. The way it was structured was that the payment obligations during this period of the bulk trader would be, I mean, the CBN would assure that payments are made without necessarily talking about what has happened before 2017. The concerns with gas producers now is that we're almost at the end of the year, and it's almost at the end of the program itself.
So is this a fear of the unknown, or do you think that there is a strategy that is on ground but is yet to be communicated to them?
Well, as of today, I don't think anything has been communicated to the market with regards to whether the PAG will go on or not. And it's a significant concern to actually the gas producers, because if the bulk trader continues to default, if let's assume that the program is not extended beyond end of this year, so if the bulk trader continues to default, doesn't pay the GENCOs, then I mean, by extension, the gas producers also do not get paid. Honestly, if you ask me, I think the program should be extended, and I'll tell you why. There's still significant liquidity issue in the electricity supply industry. For the DISCOs are practically operating at a suboptimal level with lack of cost-reflective tariff on one side, and also the issue of aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. So, I mean, if the program is stopped, we may find ourselves back into the pre-2017 era. If you ask me, I think it should continue for maybe another 1 to 2 years.
So the federal government and the Nigerian Gas Association have about 2 months to wrap up plans and see what the future holds as regards that program.
Yeah, not necessarily the Nigerian Gas Association. I think it's actually the Ministry of Power, and perhaps the CBN needs to do an evaluation as to what the funds has been able to achieve, the significant stride that has been achieved, and see if it is in the interest of the electricity market to continue, which I think it is as at this time, considering the failure on the part of the DISCOs.
Absolutely.